הנושא הכלכלי הוא מחוץ לתחום בשבילנו, וזה חבל, כי זו נקודת ממשק שיכולה להיות מובנת יותר לכל הציבור הישראלי, ולא רק לציבור ביהודה ושומרון, אלא גם ביתר חלקי מדינת ישראל, לעבר לקו הירוק, כמו שנאמר כאן בהרצליה, בתל אביב, ויתר יישובים. אני חושב שהבעיה היא לא רק החלת הריבונות, כל השיח של ימין ושמאל שמתקיים בארצות הברית ובמדינות העולם לא מתקיים בישראל. שיח כלכלי אמיתי בנושא ימין ושמאל, ששם אני רוצה להגיד לכם נקודת החוזק שלנו. ונקודת החוזק הזאת מבטרים כי אנחנו בכלל לא מבינים מהו תחום מדיני. אז אני רוצה, לפני שאני נגיע לעניין של המחיר הכלכלי או של העיקרון הכלכלי, כמו שאני רוצה להציג אותו, של החלת הריבונות על יהודה ושומרון.
משהו על נקודת מוצא שצריכה להיות לנו כעובדה של...
שאמרתי, זה שיח מספיק שמתנהל בעולם, ולא מתנהל אצלנו, או שהוא מתנהל אצלנו מתוך בלבול מאוד.
Assumptions, can you hear me now? Okay. Our assumptions should be based on the social structure. I don't know if you've noticed, but the arguments over economics in the world start with the structure of the family, the nation, values. You know that Republicans in the United States are very important to them is the family structure. The communists are interested in breaking up the family structure. The role of the family is one of the fundamental points in the argument between right and left, and the definition of a nation and national identity. The role of the family is very important not only in the Torah, but because the role of the family is related to some people who ask for people who say that my family is I can't rely on my family when I'm in trouble. I can't rely on their community. They're saying that that's the role of the state. And those who say that are in fact, they don't understand the role of the family or the importance of the family as part of the structure of society. The meaning of this, the first thing that can be implied from this basic assumption is that the family plays a social role and that the family has responsibility to its various members. Another conclusion is that the individual in the family prefers the national interests to foreign interests. This is something that should be self-evident, but we see that all the civil rights and human rights, these are not the rights of the Jewish people, they are the rights of human beings, whatever nation they belong to. This is based on the assumption that a Jew in Israel is no better than anyone else in Israel. And this is a mistaken assumption that we do not accept, but we're embarrassed to say that openly. Adam Smith said it. He is the father of the market economy, and he was indeed not understood. It took a long time until he was properly understood that my pain and the pain of my nation take priority over the pain of other people and other nations. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It doesn't mean that we're not moral, just the opposite. That is our morality. Our morality is that our nation is more important to us than other nations. The role of the state is to provide national solutions and a supportive framework for the development of the individual. And the role of the state is not to make sure that everyone has enough to eat, but to make sure that all the people have enough to eat, not every individual. Those who didn't understand it in Europe understood it after the immigrants arrived. The French refused to lower their pension payments and pension conditions and social security payments until they realized that most of these payments were going to people who weren't French. We don't have to wait for anything. We're seeing it today in Israel, in the state of Israel, in those places over which there is no dispute. We see that the Arabs who have an Israeli identity card, on a national average, they pay into the national coffers in the form of taxes and social security and so on, about 900 shekels a month, and takes out about 1,500 shekels in government payments. This is an untenable situation. This is not a situation that one can live with if one wants to see overall solutions beyond those areas over which there is no consensus. But even in those areas, this is a very problematic thing, something that we should not accept. And these are basic issues before we talk about matters of imposing sovereignty. The Jews they have a positive balance of payments. A Jewish family puts in about 1,900 or 1,800 shekels a month and takes out about 1,200 shekels. In other words, they're in the black. And when we're talking about sovereignty, I'm talking only about the economic aspects, of course. So the way I see it, what are the assets of the state? Based on the assets, we can examine the economic balance of imposing sovereignty. The assets of the state are its people, first of all, which is manpower, both to produce and to consume. The assets include lands, and the other assets are the other things that the country has, such as capital, mainly capital. What can imposing sovereignty over what can imposing sovereignty do in regard to these national assets? These are three focal points of growth. Growth is, in fact, is equal to the strength of our economy, the strength of our nation, not only in Israel, but especially in Israel, because of the problematic nature of the defense situation that we find ourselves in. What is the cost of not having the workers from Judea and Samaria in the Israeli workforce? The immediate price is having foreign workers. These were workers who were crucial to the Israeli economy, and when the workers from Judea and Samaria no longer came, foreign workers were brought here. I have not done a study to quantify the economic price that we have paid for the import of foreign workers, but anyone who goes to the places where they live can get an idea of what that price is, and I suggest that everyone go around at night in at the bus station in Tel Aviv, and you can see that there is a different country. If you've never been there, you don't know that there's a different country here. There is a lack of manual laborers and workers in general, and the price that we are paying, the figures talk about, it's quite amazing that we have a very low unemployment rate. An unemployment rate lower than 6% is negative unemployment rate in many areas. That means that there is a lack of workers. There is pressure from lobbyists in the Knesset to permit larger numbers of foreign workers. When we have workers here with 40% unemployment rates in Judea and Samaria, and we are lacking working hands half an hour from the center of the country. That is an economic price that we are paying for fence sitting. There's also a high price in crime, and the crime comes from the direction of the Arabs of Judea and Samaria. We have justified this crime because they're unemployed, so they have no choice but to be criminals, but that's not true, but they are, and we pay a very high price for that. And of course, there is further loss that is not marginal, and that is loss in terms of demand. We are seeing that since the outbreak in terror, there is a drop in demand of Arab workers in Israel and a rise in Jordan, who is benefiting from it. This can become even more significant if there is a change like imposing sovereignty over Judea and Samaria. So we have spoken about the price we are paying in terms of manpower. Let's look at the price that we are paying in terms of land. What you can see here marked is the real estate center, the expensive real estate, not including Judea and Samaria of the state of Israel. You can see, you are familiar with the narrow waistline of the state, which is an alternative for many alternatives. Judea and Samaria could be an alternative for those many Israelis that are protesting over the high housing costs. We have to bear in mind that the entire state of Israel, the areas that are in demand, I'm talking from an economic standpoint, and it may be a little bizarre to talk about lands that we talk about ideologically, to hear about them only from an economic standpoint, but there is an economic standpoint. And I think in the entire areas that are in demand, and I've included the Golan Heights, we're talking about 10 million dunam. And if we take off the Golan Heights and those areas that are not really in demand, that are not really expensive, so we'll get to 8 million dunams. In Judea and Samaria, there are 6 million dunams. 6 million dunams out, it's compared to 8 million dunams of the areas of demand. That's how it stands. The entire area of Judea and Samaria is in the center of the country, in the areas that are in demand. It's east of the areas that are in demand, but it's a very short drive, and with proper infrastructures and with Israeli sovereignty, many Israelis would be happy to join settlements in Judea and Samaria. How do we know that? We see that when there is demand in a community, it spreads only north and south, because the east is considered illegitimate in the eyes of many Israelis. But clearly that can be changed, and the market dictates the change, if not for ideological reasons, then for simple economic reasons. It's not logical not to buy an asset for a few tens of percent cheaper, sometimes 10 minutes drive